phone.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Beechwood Independent School District's Board of Education meeting, May 8th, 2023. Mrs. Reed, would you take roll call?
Sure. Mrs. Berger?
Here.
Dr. Savignano?
Here.
Mr. Hood?
Here.
Mrs. Slate?
Here.
Okay, before we get started, I am requesting a motion to amend the agenda to remove item E on the consent agenda, pay application for Phase A.
So moved.
I'll second.
Dr. Stacy?
All right, so there was a mistake by our construction company, and because of that mistake, we needed that removed from the agenda, and then it will get fixed and come back next month.
Oh, yes. Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Okay, I'm requesting a second motion to amend the agenda to add executive session this evening for a pending litigation.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second.
Okay, and Mr. Dieters is asked to update us on the tax issue that we've been dealing with for some months, so we'll do that in closed session. Any questions?
No.
Oh, Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any guests we need to recognize this evening, Dr. Stacy?
No guests tonight.
Any public comment?
No one signed up for public comment.
All right, we can go right to discussion and action. If my technology complies with me. There we go. So 2A, high school's request for amendment to the 2023-2024 school calendar. I'll entertain a motion. The high school is requesting to amend the school calendar. They are seeking to have one Wednesday per month as an early release at 1:08 p.m. to allow for a variety of staff activities such as extracurricular meetings, teacher PLCs, student intervention and support, department work sessions, grade level meetings, and internship meetings.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. I'll second.
Okay, and they've done this for some time, but they're just making it more legitimate by amending their calendar to show that to parents instead of having parent notes. I think it's cleaner this way. Any other questions?
Just
How
high
often
school?
is it?
Once a month,
In just high school.
just high school.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
All right, 2B, the district facility plan. The LPC convened on Tuesday, May 2nd. With a quorum in attendance, the committee approved the district facility plan. I'll entertain a motion to approve the district facility plan.
I'll make the motion to approve the district facility plan. I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Berger was your representative on the PLC, along with, I think we have a couple of representatives in the audience. So this is just once every 4 years. We have to look at our facility plan, update it accordingly, remove items that have been completed, and add new items. I think the biggest new thing that if we could somehow figure out, the one problem we will not solve with new construction is parking. So that is on the DFP, along with what will eventually be a renovation of the high school. Ms. Berry, is there anything you'd like to add from that process?
No, we just need parking, but that's a long-term issue, and there's really nowhere to go with it at the moment, so.
I think that's our biggest need moving forward, is how we're going to remedy that. We also have to be cognizant of 60 homes coming in the project. That was another issue that we added when we did the construction planning. On the current construction, those were not in play, and we're projecting somewhere around 120 students. That seems to be quite the average coming out of those homes. So that's another addition, is that cafeteria space. Any other questions about the DFP?
No, sir.
All right.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Okay, on to 2C, the 2024 tentative budget. I will entertain a motion to approve the tentative budget for 2023-2024.
I'll make the motion to approve the budget.
Second it.
Second, okay. So as we've known for some time since our audit, our budget's strong. Moving into 2024, we're showing a $1.4 million carry. I think that's a little bit low for what we would be, but it's always better in your working budget to project a little low. I will go ahead and say some of the early conversations about assessment, property assessments have got us rattled a little bit. As a seek loser, when property assessments jump up, our contribution to the state goes up as well, and what we get in return goes down. So that's our one concern. We will get those final reports at the end of July before our August meeting. Other than that, I'm happy with the projected budget, unless you guys have questions.
I think it's interesting that with our government that we go through a budget, but we don't know what it is until after we pass the budget. And then they tell us how much money we're gonna win or lose. I mean, it's just,
There's 35 systems in the
That's
state of
fine.
Kentucky that have to approve a working budget before they get their final allocation due to being seek losers. Everybody gets some adjustment. We're all used to, in previous lives, I was used to some adjustment because your ADA, your attendance was factored in, and that wasn't given to you until July. And then that's why we come back in September and finalize our budget. But never until I come up here had I ever gone into a situation where major situations could happen with the budget without you knowing. So yes, that is the case for us seek losers. So the rumors are a little rough, but we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and adjust accordingly at our August meeting. And we'll update you as soon as we know those final numbers. We'll update you. We'll put a plan in action, and then I'll notify you of that plan in August. And then we have to go through another budget in September, and that'll be your final, your final budget moving into the year. So yes, that's a long way of saying yes.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I already knew the answer. I just wanted to make a comment.
It's strange.
It is.
All right, Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Okay, on to 2E, the audit contract for the fiscal year 2023. I'll
You
entertain.
might want to
Right.
not miss D.
Yeah,
I
we,
did miss D.
yeah, we have D.
Oh, I truly apologize. 2D, the 2024 salary schedule and stipend schedule. I'll entertain a motion to approve the salary schedule and stipend schedule for the 2023-2024 year.
I'll make the motion to approve the salary schedule and stipend schedule for the 23-24 year.
I'll second.
Okay, some immediate updates. Number one, the salary schedule represents a step plus 4%. And I think you guys had always been pretty vocal about once the building got off the ground, you wanted to come back and do as much as you could on the pay. So a step plus 4% is reflected in the salary schedule that you're looking at, as well as a couple of employees brought to our attention that we really capped it at 27, and most systems cap at 30, so it does extend the years of experience to 30. So that is shown as well. Those are the major highlights. The 4% is across the board for every employee, and that is the main highlights, unless you guys have questions.
Nope. Any Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Now moving on to 2E, the audit contract for the fiscal year 2023. I'll entertain a motion to approve Cloyd and Associates contract for audit services and the proposed fee.
I will make the motion to approve Cloyd and Associates contract for audit services and proposed fee.
Second.
You're seconding?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so last year was our first year with Floyd and Associates. We'll move into year 2. I do think every third year it's something that you guys look at, but for now, I'm pretty satisfied with their job last year, and we'll get them back again next year based on this vote.
Mrs. Berger,
Yes.
Mr. Hood,
Yes.
Dr. Savignano,
Yes.
Mrs. Slate.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to 2F, the resolution to authorize superintendent signing Kentucky FEMA contract. I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution to authorize the superintendent to sign Kentucky FEMA contract.
I'll make the motion to approve the authorization of the superintendent to sign the FEMA contract.
I'll second it.
Okay, FEMA put out a new band of things that we could put in for reimbursement due to the ongoing issues with COVID. So we continue to look at ways to be compensated for some of those losses. I think this is around $11,000 that they've approved. They rejected $108,000. We are currently appealing that rejection, but we need to go ahead and sign this so they can clear that off the books, and then we'll move forward with the appeal. Any questions on that?
I like the 108 better.
I like the 119
119,
even
that
better.
should have been.
All right.
All right, Mrs. Berger,
Yes.
Mr. Hood,
Yes.
Dr. Savignano,
Yes.
Mrs. Slate.
Yes.
Okay, going on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to admit the consent agenda into the minutes.
I'll make the motion to adopt the
So
consent
moved.
agenda.
There's nothing I want to pull out.
Okay, so just a couple of things to point out. MOA dual credit with NKU, that's a yearly thing, nothing out of the ordinary. Pay application for phase, number 11 for Phase B, right on track. The CDIP Phase 4 reports, the first one, the continuation of learning, that is basically the application that we submit once a year that gives us the ability to have an NTI day. I don't necessarily love NTI days, but it's good to have that flexibility if needed. We have a few snow days built into the calendar, so I'm not seeing a point to where that needs to happen, but you never know when a pipe bursts or something else happens, and if you don't do this form, that is not able to be corrected. The second item is the yearly professional development plan for both buildings approved by the SBM councils. The third item and fourth item are both our EL reports. The first one is to the state, and the second one is our EL planning with the co-op. Where we had a new EL teacher, we did have a support service that you all approved with the co-op. We'll continue that for one more year and then phase that out as she has more experience. Elementary fees, high school fees are attached as long as the pay schedule for school year 2024. Any specific questions?
No?
Are the fees about, they're consistent from,
Fees are relatively consistent. Dr. Shovel, you have anything that's out of line in yours?
No, I mean, there might be small tweaks due to costs of things like consumable books by $1, that type of thing, but each is still by course, based on the course that students take.
Mr. Ashley, you're the same? Yeah. I mean, I would love to move to where we're, especially in the elementary, not having fees, but we're still a little ways away from that, you know, with some of our work. I think they have done a good job refining them. High school tends to be mostly around like my class, and we had a $90 fee, but that went straight to the AP exam.
Right.
So AP exams are embedded into high school fees, and you know that's something that we'll never be able to work around. Any other?
Are the extended days, like statewide, are they all the same for everybody, or do we,
The extended day.
like extended days that you were talking about?
The NTI days.
Right,
Right.
but I mean, yeah, not extended
Yeah,
days,
yeah.
but you know, like the NTI days, is that, if they changed anything at the state level on how many?
Yeah, so you're allowed up to 10.
Okay, so it's back to normal?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, there for a couple years, you know, it was unlimited, but this allows us to have up to 10. Again, I don't see us using NTI days. that is not, necessarily on brand for us, but in an emergency situation, like a water pipe, something big inside the building, that would give us the option if we were having to miss multiple consecutive days in a row. Any other questions?
Nope. Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Okay, moving on, we're into our information section. Superintendent's report.
Okay, obviously you just passed the first initial budget, so I don't need to add anything to the finance report, other than we need to continue having the message that property tax increases do not help the school. Actually, they hurt the school because we end up sending more money with higher property values as a seek loser. We send more money to the state and get less money back from the state. So each time we click up, especially over 4%, we're anticipating a net loss. So that is something that we all need to be cognizant of when we're having discussions. Other than that, I have nothing to report on more to report
I know
on
you've
finances.
been going after, do you get the sense that there's anything in the future that will be done about it?
Yeah, so I mean, in our initial conversations, again, we're only able to work off a couple projections, right? Fort Thomas went up 20% last cycle, right? Covington went up 29% in the last cycle. So we were initially projecting somewhere, worst case scenario in that neighborhood. We've obviously had a lot of property turnover, so we're hoping, but at the same time, it depends on how many people ask for reviews and exactly what the final number is. That's going to be a fact. If we're in a situation where it goes, to like a Covington or above, then we have had conversations about an executive order that would freeze it until we get into session, and we have talked to the legislators. Initially, talked to legislators on how we can put a stopgap for a seek loser that has a property values extending, right? So there is a stopgap. Let's say we work in X county, and a major industry in that county goes under, and over one calendar year they're going to lose $3 million of revenue because that industry is going under. There's a safeguard to kind of phase that in on the bottom side. But over here on the other side, if property values go up 100%, I mean, theoretically, I don't think that could ever happen, but
Well, don't.
if it went up to
Don't say.
100%, there's no stopgap to say that wouldn't be owed to the state. And if property values went up 100%, we would be closed up overnight. I mean, gone. So what we talked about with the legislators initially, and we've had some cooperation with other districts in the area, that how do we come back and legislatively ask for something legislatively in the spring that puts that stopgap in place to where that a district at no given time can go over 8% in any one cycle. That gives the Board of Education 2 years to get their feet under them before doing anything else. So we'll continue to work through the governor's office on one side and the legislators and the local legislators on the other side. We are benefited by, in this case, Senator McDaniel being the chair of appropriations for the Senate. So he's already been engaged on some preliminary reports, and we'll continue working, those angles. I mean, that's all we can do because it's a court order, right, from the Rose case in 1990 that turned into legislative action off of that judgment. The only way for us to have any kind of changes is to go back to legislative action. And we've had those initial conversations. But again, we don't know the final number. Nobody really wants to play ball with us until we know the final number in the end of July. So right now we're in hold mode, and then we will come back at the end of July and have a final number. I'll report to you on August, and then we'll make adjustments for the September budget.
How many districts in Kentucky are seek losers?
There's around 40 districts that are losers. There are about 20 of us that are really big losers. And then the three big losers that are over the 150% threshold are Boone, Fayette, and Jefferson. But they're not addressed too heavily because their losses are offset by new construction. And new construction and new industry offset those jumps. The problem and it's hard to explain, with initial calls to the Department of Education, they're like, but yeah, Mike, if your property value goes up that high, think about all the new construction you'll have.
We don't have
I
any
was like,
room.
There's a lot of room in Fort Mitchell for people.
Right. The second thing that we're different, that makes us so
A high
different,
rise.
is we're basically a rooftop community. Other than Kroger, the Kroger strip mall, and a couple of mom and pop restaurants, and Fort Mitchell Mercedes, the rest of the whole district, are rooftops, homes, residential homes. That's another major difference between our system and other people. Then we have a couple more. We don't receive very many Title I dollars to offset any major jump. And then in this past case, we didn't really receive much ESSER dollars that we could come and backfill either. So those are our 4 hurdles as a system, along with just our very small geographical footprint, that makes it a little bit more challenging on shifts. But at the same time, our outputs are really amazing, and we are a value add for the Northern Kentucky Chamber and industry and community, and that's why, I'm not overly concerned on finding a solution. I just have to know what it's a solution to. What's our final number going to be? How much is it going to cost us? And then what plan are we going to put in place to rectify it short term?
I did that.
And what legislative actions are we going to talk about in January?
Sorry.
Any other questions? I wish I could tell you, I wish I could tell all of you exactly what we're looking at. We just won't know until end of July.
How about when we field questions about an appeal process on the PVAs? What do we tell our constituents?
Do it,
Okay.
do it.
Well, you only have till May
May 15th.
15th.
You have to do it before then, and then, yeah.
Yeah.
But you want to do it before then because
You do want to
they
do it- you want to do it this
send
week.
you a follow-up email.
Till they start the process.
Yeah,
You want some processes.
do it. I don't see any, too much harm. I don't want to put anything out publicly because, again, that's not my specific role. I would love to have some conversations, but that's a county issue.
You just
but,
did.
It's a,
We just did.
well, you all asked me questions and I answered them.
Just-
That's a
yeah.
little different.
Well, yeah.
I think it's always funny, it's the high achieving schools that
I know, it doesn't make sense.
get screwed.
Yeah, long term, and this is not a panic issue, and I need to highlight that it's not a panic issue, but long term, if assessment values are going to go up into the 20s, no system that's a loser, without a stopgap can handle multiple cycles of that kind of jump. No system, and especially a smaller system. I don't think that's the intent of the Rose case. I don't think the Rose case ever intended on shutting a system down because you're taking money from them to redistribute across the state. So I'm not concerned long term, but again, you can't have those deep conversations specifically until you have a specific number, because everybody just wants to go into old mode to see what happens. So we've initially had those conversations, and we'll ramp them up again in the end of July, moving into next school year.
Thank you.
Well, keep us posted, please.
Yes, ma'am. Construction update, the back phase. Really trying to, you've probably seen a lot of people here during the weekend. We're really trying to get moved to a point to where we can open that for graduation. That will definitely be able, unless we have really bad weather, definitely be able to walk through it The fencing on the parking lot side is not in, so that is one area. It's not a major deal, but that is one thing that won't be in. The black fence that lines the right-hand side as you're walking in, and the big metal iron gates, those will not be in, for sure. The lights will not be on top of the columns, that's for sure. Everything else will either be finished or really close. The one thing that I don't know is the pavers around the Tiger. That is the one thing that we don't know for sure, but we have a plan to be able to come in and put plywood in as a temporary floor, to be able to walk on for graduation. So we should be cleaned up and ready to have people walk through. Again, as long as we don't have major rain between now and the end of May. So that is one thing that needs to happen. We have to get that area cleaned up to be able to have graduation safely in that area. The one concern is on the left-hand side that butts out towards the field, whether they'll have the handrail or we'll have to do something temporary. I really hope the handrail's in, but that's such a small distance because of handicap accessibility. It's such a small distance from the edge to where you're standing. We'll have to put up some kind of temporary thing if the handrailing's not in. Long story short, it should be in good shape to at least walk through and be clean by graduation. Out front, more steel has been set, and they've really made a lot of progress in the last 3 weeks. We really now are shifting towards when will it be dried in? And October 15th is their date for everything to be dried in. If we hit that date, then it really shouldn't matter about next winter. That won't be able to slow us down a bit. So everything that we're working on right now is to be able to get momentum through the summer to be able to get us dried in by October the 15th. We just finished the back phase of steel, and when they get the rounded walls blocked up in the auditorium, in the next couple of weeks, you'll see them jump back out to the main front, and then all that block will start going up. So we're probably about 2 to 3 weeks away from really being another difference from the road. From there, they'll come back and set the steel. They'll jump back to the auditorium, and they'll come back and they'll come in and set the steel for that. That cannot happen. Campus will be shut down for 1 week. Nobody will be on campus.
That happened right after graduation.
Right after graduation, other than the workers on the field. Nobody else will be on graduation because that crane will be setting, a crazy amount of weight, 70 feet of steel in one lift. And there's just no way. I mean, if something goes wrong, the elementary gets too close on this side, the high school's too close on that side, so we'll shut campus down for a week to set all the auditorium steel. That's the catwalk. That's all the different space, the 2 stairwells going down. Those are one pieces, each one of those is a solid piece of steel that they'll come drop into a very small space. So with that amount of weight and that amount of potential harm, we'll just completely shut campus down there after graduation. That's kind of the next month and the long-range plan for dried in by October 15th. I don't see any, unless it's out of bounds with what we normally have, I don't see any problem with us hitting that August 15th date.
In the grand scheme of things, if it all goes, as you say,
All goes south.
when is it all done?
All done? Woo, you're putting me on the spot. I think if we
Give me
get,
partials done, I don't know.
I think if we get dried in by October 15th, there's a strong possibility of us moving in on spring break.
Wow.
Wasn't that the original
Sweet.
plan?
That was what we'd hoped for with a drop dead of,
Yeah.
after July 4th.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's a chance that if we get dried in by October 15th, there's a chance, still gives 6 months, there's a chance that we're in. Now, the 2 things that I don't know, I don't know for sure how that will transition into the back gymnasium. because we'll probably start it right after home basketball ends, our last home basketball game. And that could lag on into the summer. So I don't see any way that the back finishes in that time. I mean, we'll be lucky if we can finish that and get it all before the start of school, and basketball the next year. That's gonna roll into the next school year. But there's no way to do there was no way to start 3 different areas at the same time because we couldn't get our Kroger kids across the field and in the building if we were gonna attack both, so it just is what it is. And because it's HVAC related, there's no way to rip out. The one spot in this entire building that you cannot work around is the high school gym lobby and around to the front office. That has to stay open. You could take away the backside, but not when it comes to those 2 doorways. So when that HVAC goes in, all that ceiling will be ripped out because HVAC comes out into the gym lobby. So that's the reason why. But I think best case scenario, we're moving in spring break. Worst case scenario, we're moving in around this time next year.
Perfect.
Can you go back to the steel part? When that is being set, you said that's gonna be closed. What happens, what about the turf? Like, how is that gonna play together?
I said other than these
Other than-
workers.
other than
All right,
those workers, okay.
The workers on the field,
that.
they'll enter because
Okay.
they're doing a lot of, we're taking 4 inches of rock out, right?
Right.
So the workers will come in through Kroger, and their trucks will exit through the entrance
Okay.
of the elementary parking lot. All right, so we'll shut down the other side. So you'll get complaints on this. I mean, we're gonna shut down half of that parking lot. So even people who are wanting to come walk, they'll have to kind of stay away for a limited amount of time because, for one, it doesn't really matter. The track's gonna be a mess. The turf's gonna be a mess anyway, but that is gonna be a little bit more problematic than what we're used to around here. As the summertime, people love to come walk to campus and be on campus, and that's just not gonna be a situation for, June and July, or June and the first week of July. I would rather shut it down and be able to open for football and our band. Those two are really big programs that want to be on campus really quick. So I'd rather shut it all down and be ready for them than to try to nickel or dime our way and it'd be August the 1st by the time we're back on.
Will that coincide with dead period? Kind
Yeah,
of?
so I mean, we would have been done with the turf before dead period. But with removing the rock to help to get the drainage
Drainage.
sorted out, now you're adding 3 weeks. So the turf probably isn't gonna be ready until around July the 20th, but we still gotta get those kids on campus to have band over here and football up top for a short amount of time.
And so are they confident that issue with the rock is gonna resolve the drainage?
They've tested 8 different sites on the field. All 8 sites, the rock seemed to be the issue.
Okay.
It's gonna be, and I need to remind everybody, this year was the easy year. Next year is the hard year. Next year's way more intrusive. The commons goes down, all that dust is gonna come through, no matter how much we plywood it up and do that. Next year is gonna be the difficult year for construction. Inside the building. Any other questions?
Thank you.
A good thing is, we got through winter and we were still 2 weeks ahead, and they've made up more time, in the last, month. So, I mean, we're in really good shape. Our projections are really good. We just have to hold to that. And what's even more, there's so many finishing items in that it's gonna really take a lot of attention to detail to make it the way you want it, in the last 3 months. So those last 3 months are gonna be the most difficult of the entire project, in my opinion, other than tearing down and removing, because that was pretty rough. Other questions? Could be worth it.
It will be worth it.
That'd be worth it.
Absolutely.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay, item 5, the recommendation for a motion to approve the agenda as part of the official board minutes.
I'll make the
So moved.
motion, there's to approve the agenda as part of the official board minutes.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Salvagnano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Okay, and lastly, is there any other business? Board, staff, public?
Graduation. All right, make sure that you guys are, I think everybody knows that. Our playoffs will start with our spring sports. I know we have a lot of kids that are involved in that. Those are coming up. And then end of year awards and concerts. I think we have several of those coming up as well. So I think we'll send you, I think it's on some of the things, but we'll send you dates in case you want to come. Athletic signing is Thursday, academic signing is the next week. I mean, there are a lot of those things coming up. So we'll make sure that you have a calendar of those events. And if you have any questions, let us know.
I can't believe it's already May.
I know.
Not sure where this,
Mother's Day, Sunday.
Yeah, this day Sunday.
Okay, so before we adjourn, I would entertain a motion to enter and exit executive session as well as adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. Once again, I apologize about skipping that item. May have